to heat up your frozen dinners, grab your TV tray, and settle in for another episode of the Plus Platoon, your podcast for all things Disney Plus, brought to you by Disney Plus fans. Watch along with us every week as we cover all the new, the old, the good, and the bad on Disney Plus. So put down that remote, don't touch that dial, and welcome your fabulous Plus Platoon host.
Hey everyone, my name's Derek and welcome to the Plus Platoon. We are a Disney Plus fan podcast that gives honest, spoiler-filled reviews of movies and shows on Disney Plus. We look at new releases, coming attractions, and we'll even go back into the vault to review some of the classic Disney that's on the platform. Make sure you are subscribed and you will never miss a moment. I'm going to bring in my sis, Kate. Kate, how you doing this evening?
Boom! I just scared the cat. I'm doing so good, Derek. How are you?
2 weeks. Ask me in
2 weeks,
I will
brother.
be
You're
doing
almost
much
there.
better.
2 weeks.
Yes. Next, we have got Pete. Pete, how's your evening going?
Whoa, hey, I'm doing good. Yeah, I'm looking forward to tonight.
Next, we have Sam. Sam.
Ching. I'm gonna give that to you, Pete. To tonight. Get it, guys?
Yeah.
I'm doing great. Also looking forward to tonight, along with my buddy Pete.
Tonight. Oh, wait,
no,
movie.
we did
Sorry.
that show already.
We did that one.
But
You
yeah,
did that show.
I'm excited to be here to talk about Moon Knight tonight.
And we also have our resident Moon Knight expert, Micah, with us tonight. Micah, thanks for joining us.
Welcome.
Hello,
Thanks for having me.
Micah. Thanks for coming back and hanging with us to give us your expertise.
If you have not already, please like, subscribe, share, get out there, get the word out. We are slowly growing, but we want to grow even faster. So let your friends know if you enjoy us. Now,
And if you don't enjoy us, don't tell your friends
let
about
us know.
it.
Yeah, let us know privately. But yeah, yeah. As they said, if you enjoyed the show, tell everyone. But if you thought it stinks, keep your big mouth shut. So
that's right.
Yeah.
And Nick and Steve have joined us.
Yes,
I love
yes.
Nick's comments.
Yeah, Steve was with us. Nick says it's a wonderful night for a moon dance. Wonderful moon dance.
Nick
With
coming
the
in hot.
stars in the
Go
sky.
And Ryan's with us. Moon Knight family, let's get confused together. Some are more confused than others. But as we usually do, starting off, and glad she's back this week. Kate, what's the Disney Plus news this week?
Yeah, I'm sorry I had to miss last week, y'all. My mama was in town. So let's jump into some Disney Plus news. First of all, a new trailer was released on May 4th for the upcoming Miss Marvel series. No, wait, the Obi-Wan series. The trailer features a teasing look at the return of Darth Vader. Obi-Wan will debut with 2 episodes on Friday, May 27th.
Now, in
Number
her
2.
defense, it was written like that.
It
So,
was.
Yes, it was written like that. So on May the 4th, they did Miss Obi-Wan. So yeah.
Excellent. All right. Light and Magic, a 6-part series looking at the special effects works of industrial light and magic, will be debuting on July 27th on Disney Plus. That could be really interesting.
I will be there for that one.
That could be interesting. We'll see.
Yeah, for sure.
Number 3, an upcoming Star Wars series, Ahsoka, began filming yesterday. The series features Rosario Dawson as the title character, which is amazing because Rosario Dawson is actually in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. If you watch Daredevil or Jessica Jones or Luke Cage, she is the nurse. So she has now joined the ranks of people who are both in the Marvel universe and the Star Wars universe. So
Yeah, she's awesome.
yeah, I love her. Next up, oh boy. A trailer was released today for Rise, a Disney Plus original movie following the origins of the Antetokounmpo brothers. Antetokounmpo. Got it. 3 of which are in the NBA. The movie releases June 24th. I think I'm going to like that a lot because I like documentaries like that. But
it's more of a docudrama.
Yeah, it's a movie based on them.
Yeah. So it's
So not a
But
not a
but
doc-
who
Bohemian
doesn't love
Rhapsody.
it? But who doesn't love
So-
a good Disney sports movie? I mean,
right.
come on.
You're right. All right. And then last but certainly not least, a new Descendants movie, The Pocket Watch, has been greenlit today for Disney Plus Productions. Will begin this fall. I love The Descendants, so I'm not mad about this. And in not so Disney Plus news, a couple weeks ago, I got to hang out with my friend Pete.
We did. It was
Yay.
fun.
Yay.
It was so fun.
Yep.
At the
So,
world.
that's all I got.
Yeah, Gina is with us. Says can't wait for Obi-Wan and Ahsoka. Watch the Clone Wars animated series to get her origin story. So
Just set aside like 58 hours.
Not happening, guys. I'll watch
No.
this live action series, but I am not watching those animated Star
Yeah.
Wars things.
Okay,
They
actually,
are
what I-
not
what
better
I
than
would-
Bad Batch? Is it
Not
better
my
than
jam.
Bad Batch?
No.
Apparently, once you
Ooh.
get to like season 8 or something,
Or
Gina
9,
told us,
something like
right?
that. I mean,
Something
What I
crazy.
will say is I
It's
think if you
good.
go on Disney Plus and you go under Star Wars, they actually have like a line. You scroll down, they have a line that says like important Ashoka episodes, so you can
Oh.
just watch like 4 or 5 episodes that tell her backstory.
Okay,
But
that
That's
could help.
funny.
I'm guessing that the series will probably also cover some of that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Any new like live action series that doesn't give me enough background where I have to go watch a bunch of animated, like 8 or 10 seasons of animated
Right.
stuff it's just not going to happen. So I feel like
Or
they try to give you as much background in the first few episodes as they can.
Or 5 or 6 Marvel movies. Just saying. Just
Listen,
saying.
I'll watch all the Marvel movies except for Eternals again. I will not watch that again.
Ryan says he's been watching Sketchbook recently. It's amazing. Ryan,
Ooh.
I'm going to agree with you on that one. Take pencil and paper with you and learn how to draw some of the classic Disney characters and not so classic. But I know they've got a Captain Hook, they have an Olaf, they have a genie. They've got some very classic ones. So if you ever wanted to know how to draw some of the
So
classic
fun.
characters, I would agree, Ryan. That is a very good show. If I would say
I'm gonna have to try that.
it's not something to watch all the episodes in a row.
No. Yeah, no, I watched it too, and my daughter is in animation in college, and she watched it and she did like it as well. And I'm with Derek on that. Like, just watch one episode at a time. But yeah, it's very interesting. Very interesting.
And the episodes are only like 15, 20 minutes, but they
Yeah.
only start drawing like the last half. So there's that. Okay. This week, the big release for Disney was the season finale of Moon Knight, which Disney has actually changed their text from series finale to season finale. Interesting to see what that's going to bring up. But Pete, I'm going to start over with you. Was the finale a good way to end the night?
So I'm going to anybody that's watching knows I've really loved this series. I think it's been fantastic. This episode to me was the most the least interesting of the episodes. I do think it did a good job of wrapping the story, which it kind of I don't know how else they would have done it. So I will give it credit to say that it took the story that they've been telling and then wrapped that all into a nice little bow. Had the final boss battle between Emmett and Khonshu and Harrow and
Stephen
Moon
Mark.
Knight,
Mark, Steven, Jake.
Moon Knight, Mr. Knight, and Jake. And I think the part I liked the best was the what's her Scarlet Scarab? Is that her name?
Yeah. Layla as the Scarlet Scarab.
And Imawet or I
Towerette.
thought that was the best part of it because it was the most surprising part of it. Even though they kind of just gave her Falcon's powers, but I was kind of like, we got these special effects left over. Let's just reuse these. No, I'm just kidding. So overall, I would
the Marvel
say
heroes were interchangeable. I told you they could all go one or the other.
Yeah. Overall, I'd say it was a good ending to a great series for me. What do you think, Sam?
So I liked this episode. It was the most Marvel-y, I feel like, of this season. Um, Meaning we had a lot of, we had the big fight scene. We had we have a Mark and Steven, and now sort of Jake, they get to actually have their hero moment, right? They get to defeat the bad guy. And so we're kind of waiting for that to happen, or as that was sort of set up over the series. But I loved Layla as a superhero also. I loved that she got to be Tararet's avatar. I want to see more of Toweret. So I really thought that was a great part of the episode, especially where Toweret's talking to her through like the various dead people and then through herself. And that was just kind of a funny scene. Yeah, so I would say I like how this episode wrapped things up, but also left open a bunch of questions, right? So we had certain things wrapped up, or we thought we had Steven and Mark wrapped up with, not being Khonshu's avatar anymore, but obviously in the after credit scene that all got shaken up. But we don't know, for example, if Layla is going to be Toweret's avatar in the future, if she'll continue being the Scarlet Scarab, or if that's concluded now. I'm doubtful it's concluded. But yeah, there was just a lot of interesting stuff that happened. We don't know what happened to the gods. The one thing I'm going to say I didn't like is we didn't actually get to see the final battle scene. And one of the hallmarks of a good Marvel series or movie is seeing the defeat of the villain, right? And seeing the entire battle scene play out. But because Jake took over, right, we have this missing piece of the scene. And so it's the part of the episode I like the twist at the end with Jake, but I feel like I would have been just as happy to still have that twist, but see that full final battle scene. So I'm a little disappointed because of that. Micah, tell us what you think.
Well, I was gonna say I think that them missing that part was part of the beauty of this one, in that it wrapped up the series well, in that there's still a part of himself he doesn't know, and I think it just sort of helps hold the whole series together. I'd agree with you that I think the best scenes are with Layla. I really love that she's more the main character for a lot of this. And yeah, the Toweret talking through the dead people and also then taking over her, I was rolling with laughter at that part. Just the way that she acts, that of being down in pain and then jumping up and doing with the hands, and oh yes, yeah, that was my favorite part.
It was the best. That was the best moment. Totally.
This one was just so short. I think it wrapped things up, but they took some really big jumps that I would have loved to see another 10 minutes or so and just have a few things a little bit more explained. But they do these really big jumps right at the end. You finish the battle scene, and then what happens to Layla? It's just sort of boom, they're gone. And I would have loved a few more minutes there to, Layla and Mark and Steven, just a little bit of a conversation. And I loved some of the interactions between Steven getting to know Layla, and there's this tension sort of between them, and how is Mark and Steven and her relationship going to move forward? And they just sort of jumped past all of that. So I liked the way it ended, but if this is truly the end of this story, then I think there's some stuff that I would be later disappointed with. So I'll leave it with that for the moment.
Okay. Yeah, I like the episode. I'm going to disagree. To me, it was not the most Marvel-y episode. To me, that was episode 3 with the fight with, is it Micah the Bone Collector or whatever? The fight at the pyramid where he had to go in and then read the
Yeah, that was like Indiana Jones though. Not
that was the most Marvel-y because that fight didn't really make a difference in the story.
I disagree.
I mean,
but agree to disagree.
That to me, a Marvel-y show is one where they're in the middle and the fights. Yes, they have all these fights, but they just keep going. The fights at the end, I don't mind. I really don't mind in Marvel shows. There was so much in this episode that I loved. Even at the beginning, where Harrow says, Mark, Steven, whoever else may be in there.
Yes.
Sometimes we need the cold light of death before we can see reality. So there's so many clues there of that not all of this is exactly real, but a lot of it is in this episode. Okay, Micah, for Layla, I know they made her an amalgamation of her and her father for Scarlet Scarab, but even before she became the Scarlet Scarab, she killed really quickly and really easily.
Yeah.
What is her true background?
Well,
and I know in the series they don't say, but that has a question to me of, she is not just some archaeologist. That how quickly she was able to, and silently she was able to kill, showed some training to me. So let's see.
And we got hints of that earlier on with when they went to Mr. Knight, not Mr. Knight, Midnight, the guy who was doing the collection, and they had that weird game with the spears, and they were on the horses, and there was those little glass pyramid things. To be interacting with him and to be talking about, and I'm going to forget the place that we heard about in Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Kamapur or something like that, or
yeah.
For her to be mixed up in that, she's got to be pretty badass to be doing this kind of stuff, and she's into some shady stuff. Okay,
I just have all sorts of questions. Okay, why did he leave the scarab behind on Mark's chest? Why did he leave that there? Was it supposed to be? Well, but was it supposed to be some kind of a calling card? Or, I mean, it made no sense for him to leave that because it pointed them straight to where the little stone statue was.
It was he didn't need it anymore. So, and he thought Mark was dead, so he just left it there. But it was really just. Let's call it what it was: is a plot convenience for Layla to pick up.
Well, it also moves along the plot of saying that she will be the Scarlet Scarab, and it's that one last. Here it is. The Scarab is actually going to Layla, and that's her last little tip of before we see her.
Which, as you look at it, though, Tauret, her breastplate has the little scarab beetle on it.
Yeah.
So that's again one of those little details. Kate, I'm going to let you go so I don't talk over everything you were going to say, but trust me, there's more to talk about on this episode. So, Kate, what do you think of it?
It's funny that you think I have a lot to say,
or at least something to say.
I watched this episode and I paid attention to this episode. I wasn't doing other stuff. I actually watched it. And it's so funny because all of you were like, it was so fast. And I was like, this episode was forever long. And I think I think I needed to watch this episode twice, which I didn't do. And I'm realizing as I'm listening to all of you, I'm like, didn't catch that. Who's that person? Don't remember that name. So there are things that, oh my God, words are so hard. So all of you know that I did like it. I liked it more than I thought I would because I tend to get tripped out, and I'm going to use the wrong word again. Forgive me, with the multiple personality.
Dissociative identity disorder.
That I'm never ever going to remember that, but that trips me out a little bit because it's so out of my realm of understanding. But and so I thought I was really not going to like this show because of that. But I just fell in love with both Marc and Steven, and Hallie the hippo, because duh. But I did not
follow. Time for your checkup.
You just get me, Sam. But I did not follow. I was very, very confused. Very confused, Kate. The jumping between what is reality, what is the asylum into the Egypt into a field of flower. Like I wanted to
The
understand
reeds,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think
the scene changes do make it confusing as far as are we in Mark's head? Are we in the afterlife? Are we
right.
in real life? Right? Like and then when Harrow was in the institution at the end, I'll be honest, I didn't know if we were back inside like the afterlife, Mark's
Girl,
head
I still
thing.
don't know. I know.
I think we're in real life. I think we were in real life because of what happened in the car. But there are those scene changes are a little bit and intentionally, I think, misleading to try and get you to question what's going on.
And the like even when like they'd be walking and somebody was like, "It's me, it's Mark," like I'm in this random body and I'm trying to tell you that this is a bad deal. It's like, wait, I thought Mark was dead. Hang on, very confused. So I am a person that, I mean, you all saw me during Loki. Micah, you didn't see me during Loki. I mean, listen, game over for me during Loki because it was like, I was like, I don't understand any of this. Overall, I think this was a really good show. I think they acted the crap out of it. So well acted, so well shot. I can't remember the main actor's name.
Oscar Isaac
is not human. Like he's so good. So as an actor, I very much appreciated all of that. I think I need to go back and rewatch it with someone sitting next to me who really understands it, who can say, this is what's happening right now. Oh, does that make sense? So, but overall, I liked it. I think it was it was a well.
I get that, but I guess similar to Loki, like not so much this episode, but the previous episodes, I just kind of went with, some of this is in his head and some of it is in the afterlife. And I don't really know for sure. And I feel like they're trying to trick me into thinking into that I should be thinking it's all in his, you know what I mean? Like they want me to think maybe it's all in his head, which is a thing I hate. So I kind of ignored that because I hate that whole concept that the entire thing, like if they ended that way, the entire series all happened.
It's the Newhart thing. Yeah. Where it was all a dream.
That worked. But I'm talking about like, like it was, this didn't really happen. It was all in his head type thing. I usually don't really care for that. And thank goodness they didn't do that.
Yeah, it's just a plot cop out.
But right. Yeah. But because like, and I'm going to have some questions for Micah when we get around to that. But my biggest question is several episodes, we would jump back to Steven or Mark talking to Harrow in the psychologist's office that was a duplicate of Harrow's warehouse or whatever.
Yeah.
Man cave. Yeah. And like, so is that definitely in Steven's head then? Because then at the end there, they went to it again. And then you saw he saw Harrow's feet bleeding, which we only know about because of like the very first scene in the show, which Mark did not see. And so is like, but then he made it like, oh, now I know that this is this. But
it's sort of in his head because it's also the afterlife, right? It's the test for him when he's in the asylum. It's in his head, but it's also trying to balance the scales.
It's like, what do you call it? An organizing principle?
Yeah.
Or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Red refers to it as the organizing principle.
That scene takes place after he's back alive. So it's still going on in his head. Yeah. Where he's going back to this psychological.
Right.
So he's still not sure if it's reality, but the fact that he sees Harrow. Am I getting this right, Mike? The fact that he's seeing Harrow's feet bleeding means he knows it's not that Harrow's actually the bad guy.
Yeah, and thinking about it as the organizing principle, and as Mark and Steven are on this journey, and they are coming to peace with their reality is between the two of them. I think it's a beautiful way of wrapping that up in that they realize that their organizing principle that's there isn't needed anymore. And it's fun to see the two of them talk back and forth to each other. One of my favorite lines is, "Did you see that? when they're talking about the blood and they're realizing, and we didn't necessarily see that he was walking on glass. Mark didn't, but every time he steps in every scene that Harrow is in, you hear the glass breaking every step.
Do you?
So
Yeah, you hear the crunch.
yeah.
I never noticed that. Okay.
Yeah, if you go back and listen, every time he steps, they very much have that. So it's one of these, I think it's a beautiful way coming back to that scene to saying,
baby.
this is how it's wrapping up, and he's healing this relationship with himself there, and he no longer needs the organizing principle of that space.
Okay. Going to some of our comments, Ryan says, disappointed we didn't see the pivotal fight scene, just a blackout. Still trying to figure out why it was rated TV-14. I'm guessing the organ harvesting scene was probably the TV-14 scene. He says Jake as a chauffeur was his favorite part. We'll get to that. Ryan says, if you don't know Marvel and don't know to watch through the credits, you missed the ending. Usually a poster mid-credits is something new, but this one felt extremely necessary for the show ending.
For sure.
It was necessary, but yet it was still new. So Steve says he would like more of the avatars fighting, less of the King Kong CGI battle.
Can I just mention one thing with that? Because it is this wonderful, if you know much of Greek mythology or ancient mythology, there is this idea that the people will fight and their gods fight at the same time. And this was a beautiful capture of that. And I thought they did an awesome, I am a little bit into the big monsters fighting, but I think it's more, we see the action of the little people and their gods going at the same time. And I thought, for those of us that know mythology, that is just a beautiful capturing of some of that mythology. So I loved that scene just because of that.
I loved it too, and I loved that they didn't focus though on the gods, right? Like I loved that the gods were on there, but they were fighting in the background, and the action was up front was the fighting between the people. So I agree with you, Micah. I thought that was a great representation.
Yeah, and it didn't go on too long, which that's the big thing to me with like the Godzilla movies of late, is that you get like an hour of monster fighting, and it actually gets pretty boring after a while, in my view. And this was like, there was just enough of it there that you were okay with, that I was okay with it. And as you said, it mostly focused on the individuals as opposed to the gods themselves. So,
okay. Nick says earlier on in the series, Mark just seemed annoyed by Steven. Touching to see him embrace him literally and figuratively by the end. Again, we'll get to Steven and Mark's thing here in a little bit.
Did anyone else want to hear him say, "You complete me"?
No. Vicky says leaving the Scarabs like when the villain tells their whole plan because they think the hero won't survive. Yes, it's essentially the Marvel equivalent of him monologuing.
Right.
So, and Ed says they want you to think what you think the way they think you need to think about it. Of course. Yeah, of course.
That's Ed for you.
Perfect sense, yeah. Ed. Perfect sense.
So, as we have said, we've got the whole Mark and Steven from the beginning of the show where they weren't really, or at least Steven was not aware of Mark at all, to them cohabitating the body. Sam, I'm going to go to you.
Okay.
Was the arc of the story satisfying?
Yes and no. It was satisfying in the sense that Mark learns to accept Steven's existence and appreciate why he created Steven in the first place, and why Steven is as much a part of him now as himself, right? He goes back for him instead of staying in the field of reeds. The parts that to me were disappointing about this were a couple of things. One, it didn't really make sense of if he went back and they both like turned to stone, why did this other god reopen the gate for them? Like that, I don't really get it. And I guess, okay. No, we'll get to you in a second, Derek. But so to me, it didn't make sense that this other god would all of a sudden now let them back in. The other thing to me that didn't really make sense, again, is the balancing of the scales issue, right? The two hearts. And the reason I say that is because we all know there's a third heart, right? So how can the heart be complete when it's just the two, when we know there's a third missing one? So to me, this idea of balancing didn't really work itself out properly because we're still missing the third piece of it. And so I didn't think the story made a whole lot of sense in that respect. But I do love the Mark has now accepted Steven as a part of him, and that they're coexisting. And I love that they both love Layla, and in their different ways. And as others said, I'm hopefully we'll see them again, and looking forward to that relationship and them continuing to coexist, because I think it'll be pretty funny, actually. Micah?
Yeah, I liked that you talked about Mark accepting Steven, where the show does an excellent job introducing us to the clueless one, Steven, and his journey. And I think we see his journey up through the episode 5, and him accepting and then being sort of the savior of Mark there, taking out the other one. And then we get to see the flip where we actually like Mark now, and then he comes back and saves. And I liked that part, and I was hoping that we would see one of the gods save them and get them out. But I actually like that it is Mark sacrificing himself and the heart bringing them both back, and that it's I would almost go to say it's not the gods doing it. Now, one of the gods opens the door, and I'll let Derek get to that. But I thought it was neat that it's through Mark sacrificing himself in a way that brings Steven back, and the two of them back into. Oh, Derek's making all sorts of dancing things. I really like the journey.
Either Derek
that
needs to pee or he wants to say something.
I really like the journey from Steven to not liking Mark to we're accepting both of them. And it's not just them accepting them, but I think they did a good job of bringing us along into us liking Mark. And I'm curious to see how they're going to do that with Jake, because Jake, I don't know that we're going to like him. But yeah, Derek, what were you thinking? What are you dancing for?
Okay. So first thought I had is, so Osiris, when Tawara comes in, she says, "Osiris, you big softy." One thing you have to realize is Osiris's avatar has died at that point. And so Osiris knows that the only way to defeat Amit is to release Khonshu, and to have Khonshu, you have to have Mark. I don't think it was him being a softie. I think it was we know we have to have this guy. So I think that's that. Steven's sacrifice is totally wasted to me, because they bring him back to life. What would have happened if Black Widow and Iron Man all of a sudden found a way to come back to life? Their sacrifices don't mean as much. This is such an early Marvel thing to do. How many times has Loki died? I mean, really. But they like to bring this back, and they wasted a chance to truly have Steven's sacrifice really mean something by having him actually come back. Now, Jake, because you got to include Jake in this story. We have seen Jake more than just the end credits scene. We have seen, obviously, he is the one that does the climactic fight where they finally defeat Harrow. I'm going to argue he's the one in the donut van in episode 1. He's the one in the village in episode 1 that kills all those people so fast. I also think we actually see Jake. I think Jake is the one with the broken nose in the office.
Because he has a New York accent and Jake speaks Spanish. And the New York accent is Mark. The New York accent is Mark. The British accent is Steven.
Different than Mark's.
No, it's not. I listened to it again. I watched it again.
Also, and the producer came out and said that is not Jake. So
that's Mark.
But him, okay, how about him acting super violent? How about him acting super violent in the office, where he doesn't actually speak, but he grabs that glass pyramid and tries to go after him? Although thinking about that, if that was actually Jake, all three of them would be dead right away.
Yeah.
But So I know. I think we got to resolve Jake. I think though, if we're going to go with Jake in season 2, you're not going to like Moon Knight. You're not going to like this character because Jake is not exactly any kind of redeemable. And this actually goes back to one of the comic runs where Moon Knight's almost the bad guy. Because you'll notice Khonshu's suit is a little different. It's not the Mr. Knight. It's got like some stripes on it almost. And that is directly off of one of the comic runs that is, he's a bad guy. He does not have hardly any redeemable features. Okay. Kate, first, how's your Bloody Mary?
It's very good.
Second, what was your thought of Marc and Steven? Okay, ignore what I've said. Ignore what anyone. Did you like the story, the interaction with Marc and Steven? Hey, Mikey, do you like it? Yeah.
I liked them. I wish you all could just see inside my head right now because you all are talking and I'm like, didn't catch that. Oh, that didn't catch that. So
see, now you go back and watch it.
I know.
After talking
but
to
I
us,
feel like
and-
I almost
yeah.
feel bad because I'm like, I don't have a lot to like impart because I didn't catch any of this. And so, but just solely looking at Steven and Marc, I loved their progression. I loved that as soon as Marc wakes up, he's like, Steven, are you still there? Like, I love that Steven was created, and this was from not this past episode, but the episode before, that Steven was created essentially to protect Marc. To protect like his little kid heart from the horrible mother that he had. Like Steven was created out of love to protect. Like I love the two of them. I think their dynamic is great. I love watching them throughout the show and how things change and how things like at first it's like, no, like you don't get to take over my body. What is happening? I don't know. Oh no, here we are and we're taking over bodies and things. Like but I love how it became where Marc made it to paradise or whatever and was like, nah, I'm going back. Bye. Like I'm not leaving him. And so I really loved from my confused Kate point of view, I really loved the relationship between the two of them. I thought it was well done.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, Derek saying he didn't like Steven coming back to life. I mean, I'll agree with you. There's times when, Marvel keeping bringing back characters and things. In this particular case, I think it works because the idea was that to get to heaven, or the field of reeds, whatever we want to call it, Marc had to give up Steven and had to be the satisfied whole. And he realizes that he's not ready for that. He would rather still have Steven come back, and he knows they need him to save the world as well. So I think that all works for me. That and he feels like he needs Steven to be to be whole. So that to me is fine that they brought Steven back. I'm just going to go. I did love the entire character arc with them. I agree with what Micah said earlier. I would have liked to seen at the end maybe one or two more scenes just of how they're existing with the two of them, besides like waking up in bed and being chained to the bed.
And how they interact with Layla.
Right? Are they still in a relationship with her? She gets to get two guys. It's pretty good for her, right? No, absolutely not.
Okay,
more than one man to clean up after.
Okay, perfect.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, he can't make the mess of two men, can he?
Yes,
One
absolutely.
guy
he
can make the
can.
mess of two men. Come on.
Exactly. He absolutely can.
You got to have Mark making
Actually,
the
I
mess,
remember
and then you
he's got
hand it over
3.
to Steven, and Steven's cleaning it up. We saw he's
Oh,
a neat freak.
No, we saw
I
Steven's.
I love the line at the end. I can't believe this. And Mark goes, I can't believe we live in this freaking mess.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think Mark
With
would
his
be the
apartment.
more organized one. Yeah.
Right. He's more
So-
like a military style man.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, terrible. Who would ever want to live with a man with 2 men, or a man with 2 or 3 personalities, plus a god puppeting everything? No, thank you.
Well, he thinks the god is gone there at the end.
Yes, but
Steven and Mark do.
right. But she'll eventually find out. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Steve says he wanted more in the resolution. Love the rising action in the climax. I think that's a fairly agreed upon statement. Vicky says many plot holes. Gina, Micah, what is Jake's suit?
Well, now here's the thing. In the comics, so we have no clue, because in the comics, the Mr. Knight suit that Steven ends up getting is a totally different character. But this brings up another question, maybe not necessarily the suit, but is he still the Avatar? Because he's been freed from that. And maybe Jake is just a badass assassin and doesn't have the powers of the god, and maybe doesn't have a suit. Maybe he's using a gun, where the other ones didn't use a gun. They used like the moon stuff. So I'm curious to see, is he still Moon Knight, or is he no longer an Avatar?
I still think he's Moon Knight.
You still think he's Moon Knight?
Yeah.
And if we get a suit, I think it's going to be totally new. And I actually, that's one of my biggest appointments, is I was hoping they would show us the new suit, because we have no clue. We've never seen anything like that in any of the comics. So it will be a completely new thing if they bring that.
And I did notice that when Khonshu was like talking about freeing him, he specifically said, "Yes, I will free Steven and Mark."
Right.
Yep.
He didn't say, "I will free you,"
which means Jake is still his avatar. That's how
what
I
think
took
that
it.
means.
Yeah.
Which brings up an interesting point of him still being shackled to the bed. Does that show him still being shackled to Khonshu? I mean, there's, if you want to dive into it that deep, I mean,
that little bit didn't make a lot of sense
I look
to
for
me.
symbolism. So
I know, but that bit didn't make a lot of sense to me, because if Steven and Mark don't know about Jake, why
Jake
would
the one shackling them to the bed?
Right,
But
who's shackling them to the bed?
They do know from that final fight scene that they're not aware of what's going on there. So they're still not sure about, is there another personality? So I think they may have hints of that, and they're still blanking out. So they're still doing that so they don't wake up in some other weird village that they're fighting somebody in, I think.
Okay, except in episode 5, Mark directly looks at the sarcophagus that doesn't get opened and keeps walking. Mark knows there's somebody else. Because it wasn't the Steven character, it was the Mark character. Looks over there, sees the sarcophagus shaking,
in the
and keeps going on
in the asylum. That's right.
And think about, was that me? No, that wasn't me. Was it you? No, it wasn't me. So they know there's someone else in there.
And that happened earlier in the series too.
Yeah.
So okay, Micah, I'm gonna go with you though. The license, okay, very last scene. License plate on the limo was Spectre. Talk to us about who the Mark Spectre character is and why that makes sense in the comic run.
Was I supposed to catch that?
Yeah, they showed it.
I was supposed to notice.
They showed it really big that the license plate said
really
Spectre.
did.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that was one of the moments where I was like, "What just happened?"
I just assumed it was a big James Bond crossover.
Well,
you know what, Derek? I totally knew. I was just waiting for you to ask that question.
Of course, yeah.
I know that there is a scene that it looks very, very similar to, that's straight out of the comics, where he's in a car very similar. And I think it actually has the same license plate as what it does in the car. But that's one of the more recent ones that I actually haven't read. I've just seen that online. I think it's really interesting that they have it as a limo, and Jake isn't driving a taxi. But I'm not sure where the rest of the connections would be with that. So,
and it's interesting though, he's in England or someplace in Europe or in someplace in England because he's on the right side of the car driving.
Oh, I did not pick that up.
Yeah.
And really England's about the only place in the world where they typically do that. So it had to have been in England somewhere.
Well, actually, as someone who's lived in
There's
Australia,
a bunch of British
yeah.
colonies,
but they weren't in Australia. So
yeah, or New Zealand.
But the entire
or a bunch of places in Africa.
Almost the entire series takes place either in England or in Egypt. So it would make sense that it wouldn't be like America or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know the buildings. Is that Cairo? Because it shows a couple of buildings.
I couldn't tell. I could not tell what. And though it's interesting, the name, they actually, in the reflection, they show the name of the asylum is Sinkowicz, is the artist who did the original Moon Knight comics.
No, it's not. It wasn't Arkham.
No, it wasn't. No. Wow. If they would go a whole DC crossover, wow.
I would have caught that.
Yeah, there you go.
Ed asks, since Jake comes out when both Steven and Marc are in trouble, why didn't Jake hop out before Marc was shot? And that's an interesting point. Ed. But why didn't he jump out? Because if he did, we never would have gotten the whole second plane and the sacrificing and all that. I mean, it was a plot
we needed to have it as an end credit scene because that's just a Marvel thing.
That's Marvel. Yeah. Okay, so Micah, I'm going to go to you on this one to start. Where do we see Moon Knight next? I think there's an obvious answer, but what do you think?
Well, I think the obvious answer is the Halloween special, because that is going to be Werewolf by Night, and that's where Moon Knight originally shows up, and there's some great storylines between the two of them. So I think that would be the most obvious place. I think they are also building a number of characters that are the Midnight Suns, and I would love to see that group come together. Though I don't think that we're going to see Layla in that kind of a realm. So I think Moon Knight is going to be, Werewolf by Night in the Halloween special, and hopefully with the Midnight Suns. And they've hinted at that, but I haven't seen anything officially announced with that. So that would be my guess. Derek, what do you think?
I think you're right. I think at least the start is this Halloween special, which I think is actually supposed to come out. Is it this Halloween or next Halloween?
I think it's this Halloween. Yeah,
I think it's this Halloween, which will feature Werewolf by Night. That's been confirmed. I would like to see him. It's real interesting because the original love interest for Moon Knight was supposed to be Echo from Hawkeye. So, because
poor Kate.
And that's Kate. I will say that's kind of the reaction that the directors had too, because they knew Marvel liked the character, and when they saw she was in Hawkeye, they kind of went, "Oh, thank goodness!" And so they didn't have to include her. So, but
I don't even remember who Echo is. So
okay, Echo was the deaf.
She's the deaf
bad guy,
from the tracksuit.
Good guy in
the
Hawkeye.
Tracksuit Mafia.
Got it.
So I think there's an opening there. I think though, if we see Moon Knight, I will be incredibly disappointed if we don't also see Scarlet Scarab, because I think they have said her, especially because they said the line, "Are you an Egyptian superhero?" She says, "Yes, I am." So that is setting up for either her own series or along those lines. Kate, any other thoughts? Any thoughts differently?
No, I have no idea where he's going to come up next, but I hope it's on the moon. You're welcome, Ed.
Is that, and you'll be over the moon about that?
Ed commented, Kate does not look like she's into this. No, I'm very, very into it. I
hashtag
somehow I just missed so much, even though I was paying attention watching this. I don't know why so much went over my head, and I need to go back and rewatch it because I'm just listening to you all and I'm like, okay. I don't know.
Right.
But we will see him again. We'll see him again, and I hope that he does make an appearance in the movies. Like, I hope that he slides into the movies, but that's what I think.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me because I don't know that much about the history of Moon Knight or anything like that. So yeah, I mean, we could see him in the Werewolf by Night series show. I think that's just going to be like a 1 hour special though, or
I
something
think it's
like
just
that. Or also maybe Blade. I don't know. Could show up in Blade. And why is he called Werewolf by Night? Aren't all werewolves by night? Like that's kind of part of the requirement, right? Like werewolf by day would be a weirder thing.
Yeah. I don't know. All I know about werewolves I learned from Harry Potter. So
that's Werewolf by Day is Michael J. Fox. That's a totally different thing.
Oh, right.
That's
Teen
right.
Wolf by Day.
Teen Wolf. That's Teen Wolf, not werewolf, though. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm in kind of the same camp as Pete in that I don't know a lot of the background and haven't done any sort of research on even Werewolf by Night or any of the other series that are coming out. But I think the more interesting question than where are we going to see Moon Knight next is where are we going to see Scarlet Scarab next? And I am hoping that we're going to see her in Thor. I have no idea if we're going to, but I just want to. And I want to see her. I want to see more of her like as soon as possible. And with Tarot, because I love her and her voice. So yeah, I honestly don't know, but I want to see her soon.
We do have a hint at where she might show up, and it's in a different movie, and it's with Black Panther, and especially because Tauret has already said she loves that realm,
the ancestral plane.
That's right.
Egypt is part of Africa, so it makes sense that we have two African superheroes joining together. It just makes sense for them to go together with that. And Tauret's already sort of hinted at that. So I'm like, ooh, that's where I want us to see her.
That would be awesome.
Micah, we are not worthy of your presence. I love it.
And it actually kind of shocks me that we have Wakanda Forever is coming out this year, folks, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's less than 6 months away, and there's no hints at what's going on in that movie. So yeah, she totally could be in it, right?
Okay. So as we do, we are going to rate this for number of cups of pixie dust. We're going to go the entire season. Kate.
3.
Okay.
I'm realizing I probably gave Loki too high a rating because I gave Loki a 5, and I actually like this series better, I think. But I'm going to give this one a 4.5 because I didn't love this last episode as much as I did the first 5. So I'm going to give it a 4.5. I'm definitely going to rewatch it at some point.
All right.
Sam?
I'm going to give it a 3. I thought the season started out kind of weak, and then I loved once we hit the asylum. I was all about it. So I have to give it a balance. There were some holes in this last episode that bothered me. So solid 3. I would rewatch it, but I didn't like it as much as the other Disney Plus Marvel live action TV series that we saw. Micah?
Well, I got to agree with Pete with a 4.5. I think this is my favorite of all of the Marvel shows and all of the Marvel movies. I absolutely loved this and the way that they played it and a lot of the hints. I do think this last one, and that's why I wouldn't do a 5, is they missed so much that they could have done in this final episode. It was just too quick. So 4.5 for me. But I'm a Marvel loving person. So Derek.
And I am not a Marvel loving person. And I'm going to go with 3.5. I really enjoyed this. I will go back and watch this again at some point, especially if he shows up again. I will watch this season again. I loved the dissociative identity disorder angle. I loved all the different Easter eggs that called back, like that. The one in the first episode about, rejected from the field of reeds that goes to episode 5. I love that kind of stuff. That's part of the reason I loved WandaVision so much. So for me, a solid, and I almost gave it a 4, but I couldn't quite. It's based on what I've read.
Then you remembered it was Marvel, and you were like, I can't possibly give it.
I looked at what I rated 3.5. I mean, this is tied for my highest Marvel rating. So I really enjoyed this. Vicky says it's a 3. Steve's at a 4. 3 says up to because Oscar Isaac crushed it. Okay. Gina says a 3 has definite rewatchability. So I think we all enjoyed the series, which we don't always say.
And I do want to make one more comment on it. I love the interconnectedness of Marvel, but it was actually nice having a series that wasn't so connected. Like every series does not have to be continuously part of the bigger universe.
Yeah.
You know,
and I think that's why I liked it.
No, I know, but like it's like let's, you know, it's okay to have a character breathe on its own. And it was one of the things I kind of liked about Eternals, sort of, was the movie wasn't good, but it was also something that was more standalone than other things. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with having a standalone story and then later bringing the character in, as opposed to, you know, most of the series so far, right? I mean, WandaVision had a little bit of standalone to it, but still in the end, it really wrapped into the bigger picture.
Yes, but I didn't. But I had not seen Endgame or any of those, and I got everything that was, as long as you knew that Vision was supposed to be dead.
Yeah,
right,
but it
really
ties into the larger story towards the end, though.
Yeah,
even
but
though you're right, you didn't have to know a lot of
you
the
didn't have to know
backstory.
that.
Right.
So.
Right.
But for Pete's point is that it's part of the, you know, it's part of the universe, meaning it's really like the story is going to connect to other stories, meaning to other movies and other TV series. This one really doesn't have to. I mean, it can. They left it open so it can, but it really doesn't have to. It can really be its own universe if they want. The only thing that always bothers me, and this is the case with every Marvel movie and series where you've got sort of a focus being on one or two characters, is how come like the Avengers don't show up to help defeat Hammett? Like, you know, anyway, I'll set that aside, but that always happens. So.
I can agree with you on that, though, as someone who is watching through the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, complete with television shows. There are times where I'm like, yo, where you at, Thor? Where you at?
Exactly.
What are you doing?
Right?
Hey,
well, and Thor might be hard because Thor might be on a different world, but at least the ones that are like on planet Earth.
Robert Downey Jr., what are you doing?
Well,
where you
Well,
at?
he's dead. He's
He's
dead.
deceased.
I'm not there yet, Derek.
Spoiler alert, he dies.
Spoiler filled, yeah.
I love you 3000, Kate.
I love you 3000.
Can I just say one thing? That last scene, the last battle there, probably only lasted like 20 minutes. So maybe the Avengers were on their way and they just didn't have time to get there. Because I'm always kind of annoyed when shows are like, oh yeah, these people that live 3,000 miles away show up in an hour, you know. So let's say they were on their way. They could have just had them show up at the end and go, oh, it's already taken care of. Okay, well, bye.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, next week we are actually not going to be doing a live show, but we're going to be doing a best of Plus Platoon. You know, all these things like Confused Kate and the He's on the Moon. We're going to see where those came from. We're going to have those. And I've gone way back into the archives, and I'm pulling out those clips, and those are going to be on next week. In 2 weeks, we're going to be going Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers movie. So, and guys, I will say from the advertisements for that and the trailers for that, I am so looking forward to this movie because it looks like, honestly, it looks like a 2022 Roger Rabbit.
It does, yeah.
In a good way. It has the potential to do it in a very good way. So
we'll see.
Guys, if you have suggestions, please email us at plusplatoon@gmail.com. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, everywhere you could possibly think of. If there's someplace we aren't, let us know and we'll get there. Please go on to Apple Podcasts and give us those 5-star reviews. As I said, we're growing, but that's how we get to see more people. More people get to see us. So with that being said, guys, Micah,
thanks for hanging out with us, Micah.
Later, Gators.
So much. Later, Gators. Yes. And we will see you hopefully. Not sure. We'll see how Miss Marvel goes, but we will definitely be calling you back in when we go, what? How does this go? So
listen,
thanks,
Micah,
Micah,
you'll be here when we do anything Marvel. It's fine.
Yeah.
And I won't
You got nothing else going on, Micah. So anyway, guys, that being said, I'm going to say goodnight, everyone, and we'll see you live in 2 weeks. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching this week's episode of the Plus Platoon. Be sure to subscribe to the Plus Platoon podcast to keep getting great content each week. Then head over to Apple Podcast and leave those 5-star reviews as they help make the Plus Platoon visible to even more Disney Plus fans. Also, go to YouTube and like and subscribe to the Plus Platoon channel, where you can watch all future episodes live. If you have a question for the Plus Platoon, please send us an email to plusplatoon@gmail.com or connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram @PlusPlatoon.
The Plus Platoon is a Disney Plus fan podcast and is not affiliated with the Walt Disney Company or the Disney Plus streaming service. All opinions expressed on the show are solely those of the individual hosts and in no way reflect the views of the Walt Disney Company.
Thanks for watching, and be sure to stay tuned for next week's episode because the Plus Platoon is to be continued.